because it is getting, they are beginning to roll out all of these vaccines. Let me read you a little bit of information here. And I want to talk to the family about how we feel. Like, are we going to take the vaccines? We don't think we should take them. Like, how are most of you guys feeling about this topic in general? So let me read an article I found titled, FDA issues emergency use authorization for Pfizer. You see, hold on one second. For Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine. Now, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration has authorized the first COVID-19 vaccines. Oh, hold on one second. What's that? Sorry about that, family. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration has authorized the first COVID-19 vaccine for emergency use in the United States. Millions of doses of the Pfizer and BioNTech coronavirus vaccine, which has been found to be 95% effective, will soon be shipped around the country so vaccinations can begin within days. Now, an emergency use authorization means what its name suggests. A medical product gets special authorization by the FDA to be used during an emergency, but it is short of a full approval. Now, Pfizer would have to file a separate application for its vaccine to be fully licensed by the FDA. Now, the FDA's authorization for emergency use of the first COVID-19 vaccine is a significant milestone in battling this devastating pandemic that has affected so many families in the United States and around the world. This is according to FDA Commissioner Dr. Stephen Hahn. He said in a statement on Friday. So here's the thing, family, because if many of you aren't aware, many people in the black community don't necessarily trust like the whole vaccination process, right? So I'm not here to tell nobody, should you get your kids vaccinated? Should you vaccinate yourself? But it's important that we understand like the history of these type of things as it pertains to us in particular, right? Because if you go online and you look at, there's a lot of well-studied and smart people in the conscious community who will give you like a list of reasons why you shouldn't take a vaccine, causes autism, and these are things that have been proven, right? So, of course, this article I read said the vaccinations are safe, in that vaccines in general, from what I've been reading, are considered to be safe. But here's the problem, right? So the history of everything is important, family, right? So when we look back to the early 1900s, the late 1800s, right? We were used a lot as like experimental creatures. Like when they wanted to test out a disease, when they wanted to test out some new something that's going to save society, some new antibody that's going to save, whatever the case may be, they would use us as guinea pigs, right? So it's important that we understand some of our fear of vaccines, that comes from like generations of just not trusting the medical industry because of what we've been through in this country, right? Like there would be like cruel surgical type experiments that they would use us for, right? Not only that, but in the early 1900s, late 1800s, doctors and there's been studies that show, even as there was a study in 2016 that still subscribed to how some medical professionals used to believe that black people didn't feel pain the way other people felt pain, right? So because of this, they wouldn't give us certain treatments. Because of this, you know how older black people would say you go into the hospital, you'll come out dead? You know what I mean? They wouldn't want to go to the hospital because they felt if they went to the hospital, they wouldn't end up alive when they left. You see what I'm saying? Some of this shit is real. Some of this is based on like medical apartheid to a degree. Like going into these facilities and because you black, not giving you the right medication, not thinking your body would take to the medication, and your ass end up dying. So a lot of these folklores have been passed down to a lot of us in the community from our family, from our aunties, from our grandmas, all this shit, right? One of the most popular reasons throughout histories why we don't trust vaccines is much of the suspicion comes from, and this is from an article I found. I was familiar with this, but I want to read it from the article I found for you guys. Is the rooted in the infamous Tuskegee experiment, said Sheila Murphy, a health communications professor at the University of Southern California, who has looked at why black people volunteer less often for clinical trials, right? Now, the 40-year experiment, which ended in 1972, involved government researchers leaving 600 black sharecroppers deliberately untreated for syphilis, even after the discovery in 1947 that penicillin could cure the disease, right? So 28 of the men died of syphilis, and another 100 died of other related complications, right? So this is something that really actually happened to us. So again, when it comes to vaccines or any new medicine that this government wants to provide us or give us, we're going to be a little weary of it based on our history. Even sometimes, I think, even when we don't know the details of some of this history, I think sometimes it's just in our DNA, like our ancestors being our DNA, just making you feel like something about this shit ain't right. You know what I mean? And like I was saying, that even in 2016, a survey subscribed to the slavery era belief that black people feel less pain than white people. And in 2007, University of Pennsylvania surveyed around 20 major cities and found that black people distrust doctors more than white people did. And that's in big cities like Las Vegas, San Antonio, California, right? So this is some real shit. So when it comes to the vaccination, do your research on it. Give it to your kids if you want to. But me personally, I just don't feel comfortable anytime the government comes out and says, hey, do this, right? And that's just some real shit that I gotta possibly get over a little bit. But anytime the government come out and say, hey, this is good for you, I'm like, whoa, you know what I mean? I'm always looking side-eyed when I'm presented things by this government. So all my folks out there who don't feel comfortable vaccinating your kids or don't feel comfortable getting a vaccine yourself, I feel you. And we have a horrible history of this country of medical apartheid, of us being treated a particular way because we black, us being put through all these medical trials during slavery times because basically they just didn't give a shit about us, right? So of course today, when there's all this hype about corona, and again, the validity of this disease, like how much it's actually affecting us in our day-to-day lives, we don't know how real this shit is, man. Just in anybody who got a family member who say the doctors told you they died from coronavirus, I'm not being insensitive to the legality and the truthfulness of this disease, right? But you just can't trust the government. And that's the bottom line. When it comes to a vaccination, when it comes to a new disease, when it comes to what they really planning behind the scenes with this coronavirus shit, you just don't know what's going on. So anybody who don't want to take a vaccine or is wary about it, I'm completely understanding of why you wouldn't want to. You feel me? And they surveyed people in California, where I'm from, and it's like fewer than 30% of black people were saying they probably won't get vaccinated. And that's not by happenstance. That's because people are waking up. That's because people have more access to information these days. You know what I mean? And like I said, I've read some reports that say the likelihood of your kid or a young person getting autism from a vaccine is low. But I've read reports that say, nah, if you do get vaccinated, you have a higher chance of getting of having like a mental illness or having something wrong with you, especially being a young person, right? And then when we see on TV a nurse who they say the nurse who fainted after taking the vaccine shot, they say she has some prior conditions, but who knows what actually happened? Who knows? It could have been that shot that made her faint. And we know how big pharma, you know what I mean? It's just, it's obvious to me that when we look at the medical industry and how we treat prescriptions and how we treat drugs, it's not clear to me that America really appreciates its citizens and want us to live. You know what I mean? It don't seem like that's the shit they be on. So why would I take a vaccine? Why would I take something from you when you haven't shown me that you really give a shit about me since I've been here? Speaking from an African person, speaking from a melanated person, you know what I mean? So it's a difficult decision to make, but I think I'm going to opt out. You know what I mean? If they try some shit where they try to make you take the vaccine for your kid to go to school, you know what I mean? I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. But I don't trust this government, period. Now, in some cases, you know, maybe you don't want to be in the first round of vaccines that are taken. You feel me? Maybe you want to wait 3-4 years before you see what the side effects are, see how it's affecting other people. You feel me? So whether you take vaccines or not, I say do your own research. Go online and look at our history with the medical field and kind of get an understanding of why we don't want to. Do your own research on vaccines and the histories of vaccines and how they've affected us. You know what I mean? That's an important thing to do. You feel me? Now, next news story. Family, let's keep this thing rolling. Let's keep this thing rolling. Okay, this is a weird story because